The AWS Deep Eraser. It's a pretty cool toy, but ugly. This is the front. So what's it all about? So the AWS Deep Eraser is really trying to train this little car using this camera here in the front to race along a track using machine learning. So there are quite a few ways that you can train a machine or let a machine learn. One maybe more obvious way is called supervised learning. So that's where you feed the car, in this case, with a lot of data, historic data. And you say these are the inputs, and for these inputs, these are the outputs. And you'll create a little bit of a neural network between the two. And one issue with that, especially when you're trying to win a race or trying to win some kind of game like AlphaGo, is you can only be as good as the data that you provide. So what you really want is you want the car to explore the environment and learn new things, right? And that's where reinforcement learning comes in. And that's what this car is using. So reinforcement learning is more about the car just exploring the environment and exposing itself. And all you need to provide is not a lot of data at the beginning. What you need to provide is what they call a reward function. So you would say, if you remain on the track, maybe in the middle of the track, then you get 2 points. If you go off to the white, 0.5 points. If you're on the grass, 0 or minus points or whatever. And what you want to do is just tell the car that these are the rules. These are the things that you can do. You can apply the throttle, you can apply the steering. Those are the only things. And what you want is that the car experiments. And it will run over and over and over a lot of times. And it will start to experiment new ways. And out of that, it can actually train itself. And that is reinforcement learning. So that is actually, if you think about it, what you want for your business, right? You want to experiment, you want novel ideas to surface, and you want a lot of exposure to your environment so that you can build something that's best apt or launch a product that's best apt for the business. And that is where I think it's a little bit like another famous race. So if you take the two competitors in the business race, let's just take the two extremes. On the one side you have a startup, and the other side you have your big enterprise, right? So the famous race I'm thinking about is the tortoise and the hare. And I love that analogy because we all know which is faster, but it doesn't mean necessarily that the hare will win the race. So if you look at the two competitors, the enterprise, what would be their strategy to launch a new novel project? So the best that I've seen really is closer to supervised learning. It's where you take a lot of data and you maybe sit in a room and you look at the data and you might think that you know the customer, and people says, this is what I think the customer wants, or this is what I think they want. All of this data, and you also look at previous output, and then you try and predict what is the next output or the next thing that our customers would want to have. If you look at a different strategy, and that's really the strategy of the startup, what they would do is they would expose themselves to the environment a lot. It's not necessarily a strategy, it's almost just forced upon them, because if you're a founder of a new idea, you have to be in the environment, right? You're trying to convert users, so you have to be exposed to an environment. So the only strategy that really evolves out of that is more of a reinforcement based, where there's a lot of feedback. Here's a new product, do they like it? Am I converting users or not? And then I have to pivot and I have to change. So those are the two strategies, and I think this is the very good lesson for enterprises to learn. And I like to think of it this way: it's the distance between the founder or the idea or the new novel product or whoever's the stakeholder there, the distance between them and the environment or the user. And if you look at a startup, that distance is very close to each other. While usually in an enterprise, it's a massive distance. It's not even a distance, it's actually a bit of a chain. Usually what I've seen is that an enterprise would have the idea, the founder, or someone on this side, and then they will create a chain of all sorts of almost blockers. For example, it has to go through bureaucracy of decision making. There's some legacy software that blocks it. There might be some compliance, maybe there's a cloud architecture forum, or maybe there's a security forum that first has to look at it, and they're not concerned about the environment. They're just looking at the idea and they're saying, is it secure, or is it applying our standards of architecture? And then it has to go through that. It has to go through all sorts of hoops and blockers to get to the environment, and that distance is too big. And that's the learning that I want to leave with you guys today. How do you really solve this? I think one step, a small step to start with, is just to look at what is that chain actually. What is our distance? Have you ever looked at what's the distance from the idea to the founder? It could be a distance in time, like months and months and months before it gets to the environment, and then may no longer be apt for the environment. Or it could be just a distance in, ideas over the wall. Someone saying, hey, I'm the BA, now it's time for a development team, then it's the testers, and it's a very long chain before you get to the environment. So just go and start define that. And I think the second learning I want to leave with you is we might see these blockers in the way, the compliance, the bureaucracy, the decision making, all of that as enemies. And I think that's actually could be turned around as an opportunity. Because you think of a startup, they don't have a compliance division. They don't have someone that has your back to look at the security, or a cloud forum that has a lot of experience in architecture that can look at these things. They just don't have it. They don't have a lot of people with business acumen who can make decisions. So all you need to do is you want to remove the chain. And you want to say, can't I have all of these people just focused on the environment side by side, rather than a chain and spreading that distance towards the environment? And I think that's really something that enterprises could use to win the next race. So hopefully it's valuable to you guys, and it will help you win some more races.